Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever noticed that in a world where everyone is posting everything, every coffee, every thought, every moment they can dress up with filters, there are a few people who simply don't? They're there, quietly watching, quietly scrolling, quietly existing in the background of the digital universe. Maybe you know someone like that. Maybe you are someone like that. And if so, you might want to stick around, because what I'm about to reveal will finally explain something you've always felt but never put into words. Before we go deeper, make sure you hit subscribe if you love content that digs beneath the surface of the mind, because today's topic, this one goes deeper than you expect. Because here's the real question, buzzing beneath the silence. Why would someone choose to remain unseen in a world obsessed with being seen? It sounds simple. People assume, oh, they're quiet, they're shy, they're private. But that's not it. Not even close. Behind that silence is an entire psychology, a set of internal truths, emotional choices, and mental patterns that reveal far more about identity and self-awareness than most people realize. Because not posting isn't just a behavior, it's a statement, a quiet rebellion, a silent refusal to perform. See, social media has changed how we exist. It rewards visibility. It rewards noise. It rewards those who constantly show who they are, how they feel, where they've been, and what they want people to think of them. And in a world built like that, silence becomes powerful. Silence becomes intentional. Silence becomes its own kind of identity. And here's where it gets interesting. People who don't post often understand something most people don't. Silence is control. It's the power to decide what the world does not get to know about you. It's the freedom to live moments instead of capturing them. It's the ability to experience life without turning it into a performance. Psychologists have found that people who rarely post often score higher in traits like introspection, emotional independence, and self-restraint. These aren't people seeking attention. They aren't people craving validation. They're people who don't need it. In a world drowning in performances, they are the ones who choose presence over performance. Because let's be honest, most of what we post isn't sharing, it's signaling. This is who I am. This is my life. Please approve. But when someone stops posting, that entire psychological cycle breaks. The pressure dissolves. The need for applause fades. Moments start belonging to them again, not to the feed. People who don't post crave something social media rarely gives. Authenticity. Not the curated authenticity that influencers promote, but the real thing, the kind that doesn't need an audience. They don't hate the internet. They don't dislike people. They just don't feel the need to document their existence for strangers to consume. Because deep down, they understand how fragile meaning becomes once it's uploaded. There's a concept in psychology called psychological ownership, the sense that a memory, a feeling, a moment belongs entirely to you. The moment you post it, that ownership weakens. It becomes shared property. It becomes open to interpretation, criticism, or misunderstanding. So the people who don't post protect their moments the way someone might protect something sacred. Not because they're hiding something, but because they don't want to cheapen it. And maybe you've felt this too, that strange weight of sharing something beautiful and suddenly feeling pressure to outdo it. That quiet exhaustion of turning your life into content. That subtle anxiety of wondering how others will react. The people who don't post, they stepped away from all that. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like slipping out of a crowded room and into fresh air. But silence doesn't mean they don't feel. It doesn't mean they're disconnected. In fact, many of them feel more than they post. Sometimes the quietest timelines belong to the loudest minds. They are observers, thinkers, processors. They experience life in detail, with depth. They notice the pauses in conversations. They feel the shift in someone's tone. They absorb the world instead of performing in it. And they understand something most people don't. Not everything meaningful is meant to be witnessed. Some emotions grow best in private. Some transformations happen without an audience. Some chapters make more sense when they're not narrated publicly. People who don't post choose private growth over public perception. They know that identity is built in the unseen parts of life, not in the curated highlights. But here's where the psychology gets even more interesting. Because as the world grows louder, people who don't post become even more misunderstood. People start assuming their silence means something is wrong. He must be hiding. She must be depressed. They're antisocial. But silence, especially online, is almost never that simple. It's layered. It's intentional. It's a form of emotional design. Because in a world where everyone is constantly broadcasting themselves, staying quiet becomes a way of reclaiming identity. It's choosing truth over aesthetics, depth over performance, presence over engagement. And if you look closely, people who don't post often share one powerful trait. They don't bend themselves to be perceived. They refuse to mold their life into something digestible or impressive for others to consume. This aligns with something psychologists call low social monitoring, meaning they aren't constantly evaluating themselves through the imagined eyes of others. They aren't guided by online status or digital approval. Their compass points inward, not outward. They check in with themselves, not with strangers. And when someone lives like that, their self-worth becomes grounded. Their identity becomes stable. Their emotions become real, not curated. But not posting isn't always a sign of confidence. Sometimes it's exhaustion, emotional burnout, a quiet surrender from the pressure to be on all the time. Some people used to post often, but somewhere along the way, something shifted. Maybe life got heavier. Maybe they got tired of explaining themselves. Maybe they realized that the people who truly mattered didn't need updates to stay connected. So they withdrew, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Social media amplifies something psychologists call self-presentational pressure, the constant feeling of being watched, judged, or evaluated. For sensitive minds, deeply emotional people, or those who value sincerity, this pressure becomes suffocating. So they retreat to protect themselves, not from connection, but from distortion. Because being visible doesn't always mean being understood, and being unseen doesn't always mean being alone. In fact, people who don't post often experience stronger real-world connections. Think about it. When you stop announcing your life online, you discover who asks how you're doing without seeing a story. You learn who checks in because they care, not because they're curious. You feel the weight of genuine attention, not algorithmic interaction. Silence filters people. It reveals who values you beyond your highlight reel. And once someone experiences that kind of clarity, posting becomes less meaningful. Why display life when you can actually live it? Why perform joy when you can feel it privately? Why curate identity when you can be yourself without an audience? But here's another reason people don't post. One most never consider. They're too busy living. They're traveling without documenting it. They're laughing without recording it. They're healing without announcing it. They're growing without needing applause. Their memories become richer because they're not diluted by the pressure to capture. Their emotions become more authentic because they don't need to be explained. Their experiences become personal again, something the world can't scroll through. And that is rare because social media has conditioned us. Every time we post and receive likes, dopamine fires. Slowly, our brain learns that sharing equals reward, that visibility equals value, that being seen equals significance. But people who don't post, they step out of that system. They reclaim their dopamine. They reclaim their identity. They reclaim their mind. Psychologists call this internal locus of control, the belief that your worth and happiness come from within, not from external approval. And people who don't post have this in abundance. Their joy isn't based on engagement. Their confidence isn't based on feedback. Their value isn't based on metrics. They exist without needing witnesses. And here's something truly surprising. Studies show that people who take long breaks from posting often report higher emotional stability, lower anxiety, and greater life satisfaction. Because when your identity isn't being constantly mirrored back at you, it becomes whole again. Your life stops feeling like content. Your mind stops feeling like a stage. Your emotions stop feeling like performances. You become real again. But silence isn't only peaceful, it can be misunderstood. Sometimes people worry that not posting makes them invisible, that the world is moving on without them, that they're being forgotten in the digital noise. But then, something beautiful happens. They realize the world that matters will always find them. The real ones don't need reminders. The meaningful connections don't need updates. Presence becomes measured in intention, not visibility. People who don't post don't disappear. They just choose where to appear. They choose depth over display, clarity over clutter, intimacy over exposure. They choose real life over published life. And this is where the psychology becomes even more profound, because when someone stops posting, something unexpected happens inside them. Their inner world begins to expand. With no pressure to document their experiences, they start genuinely experiencing them. With no need to impress an audience, they start impressing themselves. With no performance to maintain, they start rediscovering who they really are. This shift is subtle, but powerful. They stop narrating their life for others. They stop rehearsing captions in their head. They stop turning moments into evidence. Instead, they begin turning moments into memories. People who don't post often experience richer emotional processing. Think about how often people interrupt their own happiness just to photograph it. They chop their moments into content. They flatten their experiences into frames. And the memory becomes less about the emotion, more about the post. But for the quiet ones, the ones who stay unseen, the moment stays whole. A sunset is a sunset, not a story. A meal is a meal, not content. A celebration is a celebration, not a performance. The memory remains unfiltered, unbroken, untouched. This leads to something psychologists call deep encoding. The brain stores the moment more vividly when you're fully present for it. And since people who don't post are rarely distracted by documenting, their memories become richer, more textured, more emotionally alive. But here's the irony. These people are often labeled mysterious, not because they're trying to be, but because we've grown so used to constant broadcasting that privacy now looks like a personality trait. In reality, their silence isn't hiding anything. It's protecting something. Their peace, their authenticity, their emotional clarity, their true identity, the one that doesn't bend in front of a lens. They understand something the digital world forgets constantly. You can't perform and heal at the same time. You can't pretend and grow at the same time. You can't curate and connect at the same time. So they choose not to perform, not to curate, not to chase attention or image. They choose a deeper, slower transformation, one the feed never sees. But just because they don't post doesn't mean they don't feel unseen sometimes. Silence can be peaceful, but it can also echo. It can feel isolating in a world where visibility equals existence. They may wonder if they're being forgotten, if their absence is misread, if they're slipping into the background of other people's minds. But then they realize something quietly magnificent. If someone needs your presence to remember you, they were never truly connected to you in the first place. People who don't post learn to value the ones who reach out without needing reminders, the ones who send messages just to check in, the ones who feel you even when you're quiet. These are connections that don't depend on visibility, they depend on care. And when someone experiences connection like that, posting becomes unnecessary. Their relationships deepen because they're built on intention, not updates. But make no mistake, people who don't post are not cold. They're not distant. They're not emotionally detached. In fact, they often feel the world more intensely. They're the ones who notice the subtle things. The way someone pauses before speaking, the sadness behind the smile, the joy hidden in someone's tone, the tiny, quiet details others scroll past. Their silence online often comes from being deeply attentive offline. And that brings us to one of the most surprising psychological truths of all. People who don't post are often the ones living most authentically, because authenticity requires privacy. It requires space to think, to feel, to grow without being observed. It requires room to fail without an audience, room to rise without applause, room to change without commentary. The ones who don't post give themselves the gift of that space. But their silence also reveals something about the way they see life. They do not see themselves as content. They see themselves as human. And that is rare, because the truth is, the world is slowly forgetting how to be human. Everything has become a performance. Happiness must be demonstrated. Success must be posted. Healing must be documented. Love must be photographed. We've reached a point where existence feels incomplete unless it's visible. But people who don't post resist that. They remind us that meaning doesn't need witnesses, that real life doesn't need validation, that identity doesn't need display. Their silence becomes a mirror reflecting something uncomfortable yet freeing. You are allowed to live without being watched. You are allowed to feel without explaining. You are allowed to grow without showing. You are allowed to exist without proving anything, and maybe that's why their presence feels so powerful even in their absence. Because their silence isn't empty, it's full of depth, full of observation, full of authenticity, full of a selfhood, untouched by algorithms. They're not online to be seen, they're online to understand, to observe, to feel life directly instead of feeding it to an audience. And as we reach the final layer of this psychology, something becomes clear. The people who don't post aren't behind, they aren't disconnected, they aren't fading into the background of a digital world. They're simply choosing a different way to exist, one that honors their inner world over their outer image. Because when you remove yourself from the pressure to constantly be perceived, something powerful starts happening inside you. You begin to trust yourself again. You begin to listen to your own feelings instead of waiting for feedback. You begin to value moments for what they are, not for how they look. You begin to feel a sense of wholeness you didn't realize you were missing. This is the quiet evolution people go through when they stop posting. You stop measuring your worth in visibility. You stop shrinking yourself into highlight reels. You stop editing your personality to be likable. You stop tying your identity to a number. Your life starts to belong to you again. And that is one of the most grounding, liberating experiences any human being can feel in this digital age. But here's what makes this psychology even more powerful. People who don't post often carry stories deeper than what most timelines could handle. They've lived quietly, observed deeply, felt intensely. They have opinions shaped by experience, not by trends. They have wisdom shaped by stillness, not by commentary. They offer presence, not performance. Because when someone chooses not to post, they're choosing to build connections that don't require an audience. They're choosing conversations, not captions. They're choosing sincerity, not spectacle. They're choosing truth, not trends. And ironically, the ones who don't post often have the most meaningful things to say. They just don't say them to everyone. Their voice isn't missing. It's reserved, saved for the few who earned access, given to the people who know how to hold it. That's not secrecy. That's emotional intelligence. And in a time where oversharing is normal, emotional intelligence feels like mystery. But here's something the world often forgets. You don't have to be visible to be valuable. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You don't have to be public to be real. Some of the most profound transformations happen quietly, in rooms with no cameras, in moments with no witnesses, in thoughts that never make it to a caption. Not posting isn't about hiding life. It's about experiencing it without interference, without pressure, without performance. It's a reminder that your life doesn't need to be proof of anything. Not success, not happiness, not progress, not survival. You don't owe anyone a broadcast. And maybe, just maybe, the people who don't post are the ones who understand this world the most. They see how fast authenticity disappears once something becomes content. They see how fragile meaning becomes once it's measured in likes. They see how easily moments lose their soul once they're edited. So they protect themselves. They protect their memories. They protect their peace. They protect the version of themselves that exists without the world watching. Because, in the end, the question isn't, why don't they post? The real question is, why should they? Why should anyone turn their life into a public museum? Why should anyone break their own presence for the sake of performance? Why should anyone trade genuine experience for digital applause? Some people choose silence, not because they have nothing to say, but because they finally understand the value of saying nothing. And if you're someone who doesn't post, or someone who's thinking of pulling away, understand this. Your silence has meaning. Your privacy has power. Your presence is felt even when it's not seen. You are not less for being unseen. If anything, you might just be the one living the most real life of all.